you are in one of the thesauruses, but you've never heard of the word, I would not use it until you became a little more familiar with it. I would try to use words that you just didn't think of, but you do understand what they mean. Because sometimes words have slightly different meanings. Like bland and tasteless aren't quite the same thing, right? Like to me, like rice is kind of bland, but water is tasteless, right? They aren't exactly the same meaning. So be mindful of that when you're using synonyms or when you're using antonyms, right? They can affect things both ways. Why does it even matter? Why bother using it? Well, one way to improve your writing from a rough copy to a good copy is to improve the vocabulary or the word choice. On my own, I only thought of 4 to 5 words as alternates. Using the thesaurus gave me a lot more options to use, and most of those words were familiar to me. They just weren't jumping into my mind right away. So, especially if you're sitting down and doing a bunch of revising at once, it's kind of easy for your mind to go blank or just go dry and you just can't think of other words for a minute. Using a thesaurus can be a great way to kind of get your thinking going and provide you with a lot of options. Looking for synonyms or antonyms for some of the words you use in a paragraph or essay can be an easy way to give your writing the boost that it needs to sound more interesting. Professional writers use them all the time, so why not you? I find the biggest way they help is sometimes you're writing a sentence about a topic and you're looking for other ways to say the exact same word because you're using the word over and over again. Like if you were using a word about, I don't know, dogs. You might be looking for other synonyms that are similar without having to say the word dog, 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 dog over and over again. So it can be really helpful. Okay, let me just kind of look at the next page here. Okay, so we are on assignment 24. So they've called this the information paragraph, and it's worth 25 marks, and it is one of the assignments I have found that students are having the hardest time with, which is interesting. I think part of it is because they haven't named it correctly. I would not call the examples they give information. I think of that as like history or science stuff. These are what I would call procedural paragraphs or how-to writing, okay? And I'm saying this because I don't have the option to change it in your packages, but I want you to know in case you have some familiarity with doing procedural writing. It's time to use what you've learned in this lesson to write an information paragraph on a topic of your choice. For example, a topic might be how to start a campfire, how to clean a walleye, how to make bannock, how to change a tire on a truck. This is another piece that's going to show up in your portfolio, so you are going to be using the writing process. If you're not sure, make sure you flip back through Unit 1 to refresh your memory on the writing process, although, of course, we will talk about it as we always do. You've probably read this type of procedural text all the time. Some examples of typical procedural texts are recipes, craft instructions, repair instructions, building instructions, machine cleaning instructions, furniture building instructions, game instructions, and I was just thinking of the perfect example would be COVID hand washing instructions, right? Something that is step by step. I use that just because I figure everybody has seen those at some point, right? Okay, let me show you a few examples. Recipe. Recipes would usually include an ingredient list up top, and sometimes they'll include like nutritional info or how many servings or that kind of thing. But the main body of the recipe is the instructions, and they are a type of procedural writing. So, for example, this one says how to make classic sloppy joe's recipe. First, in a large skillet, add oil and heat over medium-high heat. Once the oil is shimmering, reduce heat to medium and add onions and salt and saute, often stirring, until onions are translucent and beginning to brown around the edges, about 6 to 10 minutes. Then stir in garlic powder and chili powder and cook until fragrant, about 20 seconds. Next, add in the beef and use the back of a wooden spoon to break the meat apart. Cook until the meat is almost browned all the way through. I would say cook until it's all browned through myself, but anyways. They said stir in brown sugar, tomato puree, ketchup, water, and Worcestershire sauce. Simmer the mixture until the sauce has thickened, about 5 to 10 minutes. Finally, season the mixture with pepper and serve on hamburger buns. Okay. Here is an example of a procedural text about how to draw a tree. Step 1, draw 2 C's. Step 2, add U's to create branches. Step 3, add upside down U's for roots and an owl burrow. Step 4, add leaves, grass, flowers, and whatever else you want. Drawing instructions are a type of procedural writing that often include pictures to illustrate each step. We're not really doing pictures in our version, but it is really common for pictures to be included in this type of writing. Okay, you could also have a procedural text where they're explaining how to do a social skill or a life skill. That's a type of procedural writing. So this one is a party planning checklist. Determine the date, time, and guest list. 2, choose the right venue. 3, select a party theme. 4, pick out decorations and party favors. 5, decide on the menu and drinks. 6, order the perfect birthday cake. 7, send out invitations. So in this case, they're using the numbers to show the steps in the writing. But we would use words, like we would use the ordinal number words if we want to be really specific. These are words like first, second, third, fourth, etc. And there are also general sequencing words that can help us show the sequence of steps for an activity when it's not so specific. So some examples for the beginning might be to begin or at the beginning, to start, get started by. The middle section you're going to often see with things like next, then, after that. And then near the end you're going to see things like finally, at last, to conclude. Some words or phrases are going to indicate that you're adding one more thing. In addition, plus, as an option you could, some people like to. Those are all little spots where you might want to add one extra thing. So here's an example that they did. I think the confusing thing with this is because they're trying to have it serve two purposes. It's telling you what to do, but it's also meant to be an example of how it should sound. But I think it ends up coming off a little bit confusing for some people. So writing an information paragraph is easy to do if you follow these steps. The first thing you need to do is decide on a topic and come up with 3 or 4 points that support the topic. Next, you need to write a topic sentence that introduces your topic to the reader. From there, you turn the 3 or 2 points that have come up with on your topic into sentences that support the topic sentence. Finally, the last sentence in the information paragraph is a rewording of the topic sentence. All you need to do is finish your information paragraph is to revise if needed, and then edit before writing the final copy. Following the above steps will help you write a perfect information paragraph. Now, they've deliberately formatted this in a very extreme way so that it's easy to recognize the different parts. So the first part is in really dark print, which is called bolding. That's the topic sentence, which is writing an information paragraph is easy to do if you follow these steps. And then all the supporting ideas and details are in red, and they've put them in italics. Italics is when the words are kind of slanted, okay? And there you got those transition words. The first thing, next, from there, finally. And then the very last sentence is their concluding sentence, and it is underlined. Now, reading this, 2 things come to mind. So first of all, you would not do all these kind of like formatting things in your own paragraph. Like you don't need to bold it or create it red or underline it. I already understand the paragraph format. They're just trying to make it more obvious to you. But 2, one word that really stood out to me over and over again was the word topic. They kept using the word topic over and over and over again. And this is an example where synonyms might be helpful. Okay, so what are some synonyms for topic? Hang on. One that comes to mind is the word subject, but let's take a look at here and see what the thesaurus tells us. Subject. Oh, we're still in sentences. Let me go to the thesaurus. Oh, there we are. Okay. They've got topic, question, issue, matter, point, business, theme, or substance. Okay, let me see here. The first thing you need to do is decide on a topic. I could say subject there. And then come up with 3 or 4 points that support, again, instead of saying topic, you could say idea. Next, you need to write a topic sentence. Another word for topic sentence would be an opening sentence that introduces your topic to the reader. From there, you turn the three or so points that you've come up with on your topic into sentences that support the first sentence, main sentence, first, main, introductory. And the reason is because it becomes, I don't know, is it just me? It becomes kind of annoying to hear the same word over and over again like that. Like they've really overused that word. So that is an example of when you might use synonyms. Let me see here. Okay, so here is a review of our paragraph visual. This is, I think, a new one than what we did. And again, the bun concept is what the key is. There has to be an opening topic sentence, and there has to be a concluding sentence. If I had to identify one mistake most kids make is, or students, we have an opening sentence, they have the details, and then they forget to write a concluding sentence. So be aware of that. Remember that your concluding sentence should kind of echo your opening sentence. So here, the topic sentence is, in the Star Wars universe, lightsabers are powerful tools. And then the conclusion says, it takes a lot of practice to learn how to use a lightsaber. And their supporting details in the middle are, lightsabers can cut through almost anything. Lightsabers can detect blaster bolts. Skilled Jedi can use lightsabers to absorb force lightning. Now, again, they are deliberately separating it all out so you can see it. When we write paragraphs, we wouldn't write sentences in a list format like that. We would just, wherever the first sentence ends, we would start the second sentence. It wouldn't matter if it was at the beginning of a line or the middle of a line or the end of a line. Okay, so that's kind of something to be aware of. Okay, where are we at? Okay, so here are the assignment instructions. Come up with 3 or 4 points related to your topic, specific details that you want to include in your paragraph. Number 2, come up with a topic or an opening sentence that will allow you to describe how to do something. Write that sentence. Then turn your 3 or 4 points into sentences and write one sentence or more than one sentence maybe for each point. And then for the concluding or the last sentence, simply rewrite your topic sentence using different words. Go through your paragraph with different colored pens or pencils to make revisions. Check your spelling, your use of capital letters, and punctuation. Now, you don't have to use a colored pen or pencil, but it does make it really easy to see the changes you've made. And then number 6 says, write or produce on a computer a final copy of your information paragraph. Keep in mind, this is one of those assignments where you have to hand me in the rough copy and the good copy. You lose almost half your marks if you don't. So you really need to do that. So in this paragraph or this description, they are referencing the writing process. That's why I was saying we're going to get back to it again. So first, when it's talking about planning your first 3 or 4 points, that's your writing process, your beginning spot, planning what you want to say. Then when it talks about coming up with a topic or an opening sentence, that's where you're starting your rough draft and you're starting with your first sentence. Turning your 3 or 4 points into sentences, that's also your rough draft. Also, I've added, be sure to include transition or sequence words to help convey the order in which the steps get done. The concluding sentence, that's also a part of the rough draft. Now, once they switch to checking your paragraph with different colored pens or pencils, at that point, they've switched to the writing step of revising or editing. check your spelling, your use of capital letters and punctuation. That's an editing step. And then they finish with write or produce on a computer a final copy. That's your publishing step. And you would, for us, finish it, and then you would hand it in to me along with the rough draft. So they're just kind of going into detail about how to apply the writing process. Here's another example on how to do an informational or procedural paragraph, and the topic here is how to play ping pong. Playing ping pong is a fun and relaxing activity. Players stand at opposite ends of the table and are ready to hit the ball back and forth over the net at the center of the table. First, to begin a game, one player will serve the ball over the net towards the other player after hitting his or her side of the table first. The other player will then return the ball over the net, and they keep hitting it back and forth until the ball either hits into the net or goes off the table. A point will be given to the player not making a mistake after each serve, and players switch serving after 2 points. Finally, a game is won with either 11 or 21 points. Ping pong is an enjoyable activity for fun and relaxation, good for people of all ages. So, your paragraph must have at least 6 sentences. Remember, at least means it can go longer. It just can't go less, okay? Rough copy is worth 10 marks. Your final copy is worth 15 marks. And the overall total is worth 25 marks. So I did some brainstorming to kind of help you. Take a look there for a second before I start and just see if anything really kind of stands out for you. Now I want to point out, this is not by any means the only ones you can use. This is just it to get you started, right? By all means, if you look at this and go, oh, I don't want to do that, but I can do this. Absolutely, that's what I'm doing this for. So some possible cooking topics: how to make Kraft dinner, how to make moose stew, how to make bannock, how to make spaghetti, repairing or fixing things, how to change tires, how to change oil, how to fix a broken screen, how to fix a leaking faucet, crafting, how to make a pillow, how to make a Christmas tree decoration, how to paint a tree, social, how to get your kids to bed on time, how to host a Christmas party, how to have a great first date, outdoor life, how to ice fish, how to set up a tent, how to make a fire, how to catch rabbits. Basically, anything that you know that you could teach someone else how to do is fair game for this assignment. So I'm going to kind of walk you through an example of what this might look like. So I decided to pick a topic of creating your first quilt block. So I'm in my planning stages, and I wrote down pick pattern, choose fabrics, cut carefully, sew, iron. These are not full sentences, right? These are starters, just ideas. Now I'm going to turn it into my rough draft. First, I'm going to give it a title: how to create your first quilt block. And then here is my topic sentence. Really quickly, I'm just going to kind of outline it so you can see it. It's easy and fun to create a quilt block from start to finish. And now down here at the end, there is my concluding sentence. And again, I can always change it if I don't like it, but sometimes you have to just write anything to get something down. My ending sentence says, now you have finished your first quilt block. So let's look at the middle. First, pick an easy block such as the 4-patch or 9-patch or rails. After that, decide what colors you like. Make sure there's plenty of contrast or the pattern won't stand out. Cut your fabric to the correct measurements. Lay out the pieces on the table to be sure it all looks right. Then carefully pin and sew 2 pieces together. Iron after every time. Sorry, hang on a second. And this is why you reread things. Iron after every time you sew a seam. Keep alternating between sewing and ironing until the whole block is done. Now you have finished your first quilt block. Okay. A lot of people, here is where they feel pretty confident on. And then you get to the next step and revising and they're not sure. So I grabbed a little video and I want to kind of watch this with you guys and see if this helps give you some ideas. Let's see here. Hopefully the power sound comes up. Let me just check my stuff. Sound is there. I don't know what happened. I'm just going to pause this for one quick second. No, I guess I'm not. Okay. Well, well, that's too bad. Let's walk through it. I'll kind of remember what they were talking about. The ARMS is just kind of an acronym to help you remember the phrase. So A is add, R is remove, M is move, S is substitutes. These are some ways you can revise your writing. Okay? Let's see what comes up next. A for add. Okay, I'm hoping they give me some examples here. Can I add anything to my writing to improve it? Do I need to add any words or sentences? Like, so for example, just as I was rereading something, I had to add a word to make more sense. What transition words can I add to help improve my writing? That is super crucial for this particular assignment. Can I add some descriptive details, things that make it more vivid or more interesting? My favorite snack is popcorn. How can I make this better? My favorite snack is buttery, crunchy popcorn. Okay. All right. Hang on, I was about to go to the next one. Remove. What could we do? What unnecessary words or phrases should I remove? Are there any sentences that don't make sense? Are there any sentences that don't support my topic sentence? I'm going to pause there for a quick second. Unnecessary words or phrases. Sometimes people have trouble getting started, and so they kind of repeat themselves at the beginning of a sentence, like in the beginning, at the start. Well, you don't need both of those, in the beginning or at the start. We'll do one or the other. The other thing I will find, and I know I understand this, but sometimes when people feel like, oh, I haven't got enough, they try and just repeat the same sentence, but in a slightly different way, and it doesn't really add to the paragraph. So those kind of things, remove. Are there any sentences that just don't make sense? Sometimes as you're writing, it made sense in your head, and then when you go back, you're like, I'm not quite sure what I was thinking there. That's fine, then just take it out, right? You don't feel like you've got to have it there just because you wrote it. Are there any sentences that don't support my topic sentence? So, for example, when I did my quilt block one, everything had to be about doing the first quilt block. If I had suddenly segued into how to set up my sewing room, it's not on the topic. The topic is just that quilt block, not anything about quilting, right? So that can be a tricky one. Sometimes you don't initially notice. It's another one that sometimes happens when you're trying to add sentences and you don't realize, oh, wait, that's not actually on topic. It may be related to the topic or slightly connected, but that's one of the things to be mindful of. Let me see here if they give us an example or not. Hang on a second. Going to the movies is a fantastic activity and so fun. So just looking at that, I probably don't need and so fun. I could just say going to the movies is a fantastic activity. It doesn't really need and so fun. Yeah, they took it off. Move. Move is, sometimes you might move sentences around. This is going to be a crucial one when you're doing this procedural writing. Sometimes as you're doing it, you realize, oh, I forgot a step, or I said that almost at the end, but really that needs to come at the beginning. Sometimes as you're reading it over, you realize that's a great time to move something to a different spot. Okay? Do they give us any examples? Would this sentence fit better somewhere else? Should I reorder my paragraphs? Yeah, we're not at that stage yet, but that's a good point. Can I move words or phrases around to make more sense? Almost always. Let me see, is there an example? She served sandwiches to the children on paper plates. Okay, so A, you could just take off on paper plates, unless it was important to the sentence. Like maybe, I don't know why you would need to know that, but maybe it was crucial for some reason. She served the sandwiches on paper plates to the children. I would put that over there because it's the sandwiches that are on the paper plates. But because it's closer to children, it looks like the children are on the paper plates. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Oh, yeah, they did the same thing. Okay, good to know. Yeah. Substitute. This is where we were talking about like the synonyms and the antonyms, where sometimes you want some other words. Let's see if it goes a little, sorry, it's going a little bit slow. I apologize. What words can I substitute to make my writing more interesting? Did I use any boring or overused words that I can replace? Remember we talked about that, how the word said gets overused, and sometimes we want different words. Can I replace a comparison or description with figurative language? We haven't really talked about figurative language, so I'm not going to cover that here. Okay. He was so happy when he won the spelling bee. I would input, yeah, so happy. So happy gets kind of boring. Elated, excited, overjoyed. Anything that's more interesting than just so happy, right? Okay. Hang on. Is there anything else, or are we good? Yep. No, we know that. Okay. All right. I'm going to head back to the actual writing now. So here is my rough draft, and here is my revising. So one of the key things I look for is clarity. When I read it, is it clear what you mean? Sometimes people try and get so fancy or make a sentence so long that you're not really 100% sure. You kind of lose your way along the sentence. And I always try and look for like flow. Flow is kind of like how one sentence connects to another. That's where those sequence words can be really, really helpful, okay? So I changed my topic sentence a little bit. It's easy and fun to create a quilt block from start to finish. I changed it to, it's easy to create a beautiful quilt block in no time. Easy and fun felt repetitive to me. So first, pick an easy block such as the 4-patch or 9-patch or rails. And I decided to add capitals because those can be, they can be a name. They don't have to be, but they can be. And it might be easier for somebody who is new to look it up online. And 4-patch and 9-patch are pretty similar, so I just changed it to 4-patch or fence rail. So first, pick an easy block that only has straight seams to sew, like a 4-patch or a fence rail block. So I explained why I was saying to pick it. After you choose your pattern, you need to pick out what colors you like and a background color like white or gray. So after you choose your pattern is my kind of sequence phrase to bring you into the next sentence. Colors you like and a background color, because people might not know, like most times when you do quilts, there's bright colors and then there's like sort of white or gray, so that other colors kind of stand out. Carefully cut out your fabric to the right measurements by tracing the lines on the wrong side of the fabric. So here I had cut your fabric to the correct measurements. That's true, but if somebody's brand new at creating a quilt block, maybe they don't understand how to do it. So I added some more details. Lay out the pieces on the table to be sure it all looks right. Lay out all your cut pieces on a flat, oh, I said service. Ooh, here's the perfect time to fix that. Surface, not service. Surface, to check that it looks right. Next, pick 2 pieces that are side by side and sew them together. So here I had carefully pin and sew 2 pieces together, but that makes it sound like I could pick up any 2 pieces. That's why I explained they have to be 2 pieces that are side by side. Iron them afterwards so they lay flat. Here I wrote iron after every time you sew a seam, but I didn't really explain why. What's the purpose? Who cares? Why am I ironing? I don't like ironing. But here's the reason, to make it nice and flat. Keep alternating between sewing and ironing until the whole block is done. That sentence was fine. Now you have finished your first quilt block, and I put, now your first quilt block is ready to show off. So I did a bunch of little changes, but the overall effect, I think, makes it a lot stronger. So a lot of people start here, and maybe they change like something. Like maybe they change after that, and they change it to next. Or they add the word after that over here. and they don't really change their main stuff. Please take the time to go through and try and improve every single sentence. It really can have a phenomenal effect on your work. Okay, so that finishes assignment 24. Now we have assignment 25, which is not really a big one. Lesson 8 is 60 marks, but assignment 25 is only 10 marks, in case you got confused. And there's only 2 questions, but this first question mentions about 3 different things they want you to do, and I find it's not very clearly written. And so a lot of times people forget and do one part of it or 2 parts, and very few people do all 3 parts. So I just wanted to kind of go over this one in detail to make sure everybody understands it. So basically they're saying before you read chapter 4, scan the pages in chapter 4 for 5 words that stand out and explain why they stand out to you. And then use the word in a sentence of your own. So A, tell me the word. B, tell me why it stood out. C, put it in a new sentence. And here's my example. Gas. Sounds like they are huffing gas. My sentence, sniffing gas can be a dangerous thing to do. So I've told you the word. I've told you why it stood out. I've put it in a sentence. You're going to do that for 5 words. Okay. Then question number 2 is talking about, hang on a second, based on the words that stood out for you as well as on the title of the chapter, make a prediction as to what the main idea of this chapter will be. Your answer will contain at least 3 sentences. So the title of chapter 4 is called The Cabin. Based on that title and the 5 words that you picked out, create some predictions. So some sample sentence starters might be, the chapter is called The Cabin, so I think they might be, and then tell me what you think will happen in the future. Predictions are about the future. Sometimes people are describing what's happening right there. It's about what's going to happen and hasn't happened yet. The words this and that make me think that blah, blah, blah will happen. When I saw the word mama, I thought that this other thing would happen. So here is an example using an imaginary book. Let's say I read a book and I noticed the words blood, knife, scream, alley, sirens, and the chapter is called Suddenly. Here are some predictions I might make. The words blood and knife make me think someone is going to get hurt, maybe even killed. It sounds like this event might happen in an alley, but the police respond quickly since we hear sirens. The chapter title Suddenly made me think maybe there was an argument that happened unexpectedly that triggered the whole event. The main character, Jake, has repeatedly gotten into fights due to his anger issues, so it's possible this has happened here as well. Okay. Be sure to include all the parts to question number 25, and be sure to explain the reasoning for your predictions by linking your ideas to 4 possibilities. The words you picked out, previous actions of the characters, personality traits of the characters, or the chapter title. So I couldn't, for example, look at the stuff in chapter 4 and go, I think aliens are going to invade. And the reason is because aliens is never in there. Invasion is never in there. I have to pick predictions that match the actual words that are there. Okay, I can't just make them up out of nowhere. Reading log reminder. If you have not filled out your reading log recently, now would be a good time to catch up and do another one. Remember that any type of reading counts. Work-related reading, like letters, emails, invoices, sales, ads, posters, manuals. Personal reading, novels, poems, songs, letters, cards, lists, legal and medical documents. Here I'm also going to put things like comic books or graphic novels. Okay. Media reading, things like posters, ads, games, apps, or social media reading like Facebook, Twitter, email, Instagram, blogs, Messenger. As long as it involved you looking at words and understanding them, it basically counts as reading. Okay? This is one of the requirements for the final assignment, so please make sure to include your portfolio. Oh, wow. Okay, we got finished a little bit early. I promised somebody I was going to talk about commas, So this is kind of my basic version. I might go into more detail on another day. We can use a comma to separate independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. So here I have, I like to eat pizza. That's my one independent clause. Comma. Here's my coordinating conjunction. And then I enjoy spaghetti is my second independent clause. So that's a really common one. I can also use a comma after an introductory phrase or clause. In the winter, comma, the weather gets cold. After I finish the dishes, comma, we can go to the movies. We can use a comma between all items in a series. I need you to pick up milk, comma, coffee, comma, cheese, comma, and bread. We can also use a comma to indicate direct address, where you call your listener by name. I don't know if that's as common. So example, I think you will find, Jesse, that you have a letter. Jesse, I think you will find you have a letter. And here, when Jesse's in the middle, they put it, they separate it with two commas. Here, where it's at the beginning, they put a comma right after Jesse. If I wanted to switch it around and write it as, I think you will find that you have a letter, comma, Jesse, that works too. It's just a way of setting aside the name to show that you're talking to that person rather than talking about that person. Okay. Hang on, let me just duplicate this real quick. Okay. So we are going to get rid of this part. Oh, well, let me hang on. Let's do that. Okay, so we did that part. Get rid of that so I can see things. Number 5, use commas to indicate direct quotations. It may also be used inside a direct quotation to replace the period when the quotation comes at the beginning. Mom said, comma, please clean your room. Please clean your room, comma, Mom said. Commas are also sometimes used to set off a thought tag. We talked about speech tags. There is a phrase called a thought tag from the words in the thought. And this, I thought, comma, I don't want to see him leave. Sometimes in books, they would also turn that italicized to make it more obvious that that person didn't say that out loud. It was a thought. Okay, so that's one possible spot. Now, the next one gets a little tiny bit tricky. Let me just kind of get rid of this one to show you. All right, use commas to set off non-restrictive or what's considered non-essential nouns or noun phrases. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, announced a new budget. That's non-essential because I already know Justin Trudeau, that's already identifying him. I don't have to know that he's the Prime Minister. Whereas if I said the best-selling author Stephen King just released a new book, I'm not going to use a comma because the best-selling author could be anybody. There's all sorts of best-selling authors. So that's essential. So I'm not going to put it in commas. Same thing, we can use a comma to set off positives that are non-restrictive or non-essential. Positives are like a renaming of the noun. So the new singer whose song you love will be on TV tonight. Well, this time it's essential because we didn't name the new singer. We don't know who that is. So we don't use the commas because it's not extra material. It's important material. Whereas if I said something like Lady Gaga, whose work you love, will be on TV tonight, the whose music you love is non-essential because I've already told you who it is. It's Lady Gaga. And then we can use commas with dates, addresses, titles, and numbers. So for the date, we would have the month and the day, comma, and then the year. Addresses, we would have the street, comma, the city, comma, the province, comma, and then the country if it's going out of country. We can also use it for people's titles. Titles would be things like Dr., Mr., Ms. I, for example, could have OCT after my name. So you might say Jillian Percy, comma, OCT, comma, is the new teacher. And that's just giving my designation that I have that particular designation, that license, I guess. Numbers, 6 comma, then 3 zeros, comma, and then 3 zeros. That's the number 6 million. And it's basically a way to chunk the numbers into little groups of 3. I think in metric it's more common these days to set them off with a space, but in lots of books you will still see those commas. So it's probably important to know that. Okay, now that's a lot of information about commas at once, and I will probably go over this again a little more slowly, but I did want to cover it because I think commas are probably the most tricky thing to use, and they do come up a lot, and sometimes people aren't sure where to use it, and they've been told, well, put a comma wherever you would pause. And so sometimes some people pause a lot when they talk. So then they're putting commas like every 2 words, and it's not necessarily needed. So we'll talk a little bit more about that on another day. But we are finished basically today. Assignment 24, 25. We will look at assignment 26 tomorrow. I believe that's a really big one. And if you need any help, I will be here from 4 to 6. Feel free to give me a phone call or shoot me an email. Thank you so much for coming out, and we are finished today. Thanks.